The YouTube superstar Casey Neistat is one of the most popular and forward-thinking stars working on the platform. But back in his teens, life wasn't going so smoothly. Let's take a look at his before they are famous video to see how he turned his life around. Casey Neistat was a troubled youth both in and out of school, and at the age of 15 his parents kicked him out of their Connecticut home. From there, he would couch surf. He ended up living in Virginia for some time before he ended up in a trailer park as a teen father on welfare while working as a dishwasher making $8 an hour. Casey would go on to earn a cool $2 million for the production and sale of his HBO show, The Neistat Brothers, and now works with the world's biggest brands as a content creator. In the number 2 spot, we have another filmmaker, Steven Spielberg. Back in the early 50s, he was rejected from the University of Southern California School of Theater, Film and Television a total of 3 times. Now, I actually heard from my days working on film sets that once upon a time Steven Spielberg got himself a trailer on a studio lot and he wrote on the door director. Then all of a sudden people kept asking him director questions because they figured, he's got a trailer, he's got a sign, it must be true. As the story goes, Steven went on to become Hollywood's best-known director and one of the wealthiest filmmakers in the world with an estimated net worth of $3.6 billion. It's important to note that 35 years after starting his degree, Spielberg returned to school in 2002 to finally complete his work and earn his BA. Not like he needed it. Coming in at number 3, we have the Beatles. In 1961, the then amateur band packed up their gear and drove from Liverpool to London to audition for Decca Records. Following their audition, the A&R rep at Decca Records, he told the group that he was unimpressed and that guitar groups, well, they were on their way out. It was just 5 months later that the group would be signed to EMI in September of 1962, and the Beatles recorded their first single, Love Me Do. Almost immediately after that, well, Beatlemania, it ensued. Coming in at number 4, we have your boy Roman Atwood. Let's roll a clip from his before they were famous video. But the counselors and the teachers, they told him that if he didn't go to college, well, he would have no future at all. And for some time, they were kinda right. He got married at the age of 18 to his high school sweetheart. Her name was Shanna Riley, and after 3 years, well, they had a son. His name was Noah. So Roman had to get a job following the wedding to support the family and began working at Atwood Rope, work that didn't exactly live up to his career expectations.
Distracted with what I wanted to do, I used to actually tear up and cry at this factory because I wasn't making these videos.
It would take 4 or 5 years of Roman trying to get a career going as a filmmaker before he would figure out the opportunity that exists on YouTube. And now, the guy is defo a multi-millionaire, and on top of that, a turbo sweet dude. So good for him. What's going on, guys? My name is Michael McCrud, and this is part 2 of 25 famous people who failed at first. We did one of these a few days ago, and in there was Eminem, there was Elvis, there was Walt Disney, and Jay-Z, and you guys seem to like it. So here we go with part 2. If you want to see a part 3, let me know in the comments down below. Also, I have something a little special for you, my own story of struggle and triumph. We're gonna leave that at the very end. Alright, it's time to get back to this list. In the number 5 spot, we have my man, Harrison Ford. After his first small movie role, an executive took him into the office and told him he'd never succeed in the movie business, and he took that direction to heart. Instead, he started working as a carpenter, and because he was already in Hollywood, well, he became the carpenter to the stars. He then booked a gig with George Lucas, not as an actor, but as the line reader as George auditioned his Luke and Leia for Star Wars. The rest of the story is history, and Harrison Ford, well, he's worth an estimated $210 million. The man behind those Dr. Seuss books you know and love is Theodore Seuss Geisel. I'm sorry to inform you that he was never a doctor. He did drop out of Oxford, and his parents, well, they were really disappointed. Now, we all know his work, The Cat in the Hat or Green Eggs and Ham, but starting out, Theodore had his first book rejected a total of 27 different times by publishers. His books have sold over 600 million copies since, and there have been at least 2 feature films made on his work. And that Dr. Seuss brand, well, it likely brought in enough money that Dad has forgiven him for not being, a real doctor. British-born underground rapper MF Doom, you may or may not have heard of him. He's a rapper who has chosen to keep his identity a secret by wearing a gladiator mask. Back in the 80s, alongside his brother, he formed a group known as Causing Much Danger, and they were signed to Electric Records, where they released Mr. Hood in 1991 and Black Bastards in 1993. But of the later of those 2 albums, the record label decided that the material, it was too controversial. They didn't like the cover art, they didn't like the lyrics. So the whole thing got shelved, the group was dropped, And then MF Doom, well, he was facing a life on the streets. When he did re-emerge with that gladiator mask, well, he would work as hard as a motherfucker, putting out multiple albums, solos, and performing each and every year. He's now estimated to be worth over $6 million. Next up at number 8, we have the mastermind behind evolution. We're talking about Charles Darwin. When he was a wee boy in the early 1800s, Charles Darwin came from an extremely wealthy family, and his father was a doctor, and he wanted him to do the same. But young Charles was treated like the dimwit amongst his 5 siblings and his peers at school. The family didn't know what to do with him. His grades at school, they were poor, and then he took on an apprenticeship to get into medicine, where he wasn't doing so good. He then decided to travel the world to uncover nature's mysteries. His writings on the origin of species fundamentally changed the world of science by spreading the discovery of evolution, which totally debunks what I thought happened because of them Planet of the Apes films.
Doctor, I'd like to kiss you goodbye.
All right, but you're so damned ugly.
On that note, let's talk about Mark Wahlberg, who starred in a Planet of the Apes film way back when. Let's take a look at his Before They Were Famous video I made under a year ago, but it looks really dated. At the age of 12 or 13, he would sneak out of his home each and every night through a window and spend his nights on the street. By 14, he had dropped out of high school. At the age of 10, his brothers had started getting him drunk off of beer, and by 15, he was addicted to cocaine. He would steal cars and sell drugs, running with a tough crowd. All of this would come to a head when he got into an altercation with a Vietnamese man. Mark was wielding a metal hook and gouged out the man's eye. For this, Mark ended up serving 45 days of a 2-year sentence at Deer Island, an adult prison. This gave Mark time to reflect on the path he was heading down. A lot of his friends, they had died. The people that he looked up to while they were locked away in prison with him, he needed a change. The first thing he focused on was bulking up. Look how far we have come. Now them muscles, they paid off, and although Marky Mark didn't get a spot on New Kids on the Block, his brother helped him start his own music career, and then he was a model, and then he was an actor, and today he's worth $200 million. Yeah, he did alright. America's largest department retail store is Macy's. It's also one of the biggest in the world. Besides their stores, they are also known for their annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and were the first store to hire a man in a Santa suit. The company's founder, Roland Husey Macy, he initially opened 4 retail stores that sold dry goods, and this was back in the 1840s. All of a sudden, all of them, they failed. But clearly the man learned from his mistakes, because when he opened up Macy's, well, things took off. Good for him. Sir James Dyson, the inventor of the Dyson vacuum brand, went through 5,126 failed prototypes and was living off what little remained in his savings, trying to build the world's best vacuum. It took him 15 years. But the 5,127th prototype, it worked out, and Dyson's brand became the best-selling bagless vacuum brand in the United States. He's now worth an estimated $4.9 billion. So yeah, it was worth them 15 years. Rapper 2 Chainz, the dude had to wait till his 40s to actually make it big. Originally, he was going under the name Titty Boy due to him telling his friends that back in the day, well, he was breastfed.
You're very close to my hats with your coffee.
Darling, this is chamomile tea.
Oh, lovely.
It could have been the name, perhaps something else, but he grinded it long and hard. The full story you can find on my Before They Were Famous video I made on 2 Chainz. Following the name change, he released a mixtape entitled True Religion and began making numerous guest appearances on tracks with heavy hitters including Kanye West on Mercy and Nicki Minaj on Bees in the Trap. Then on March 24, 2012, 2 Chainz announced his debut studio album based on a true story, and the album's lead single, No Lie featuring Drake, it blew up. Coming in at the number 13 spot, we have a remarkable story that was shared with me by my buddy Jay Brody, and there we have a little shout out for Jay. Soichiro Honda is the man responsible for all them Honda Civics you see, well, everywhere. Soichiro was obsessed with motors at a young age. Growing up in Japan, he was also deemed turbo nonconformist, so typically he would have to work alone. And he couldn't get a job at Toyota even though that's all he truly wanted, so he had to go and make motors by himself. Eventually, he was running his own factory until World War II bombed and leveled his business. Then the next year, an earthquake did the exact same thing. All of a sudden, this dude was bankrupt and pretty much about as fucked as anyone could be. But he persevered and turned Honda into the billion-dollar multinational corporation it is today. What a guy. Former Vice President Dick Cheney, he dropped out of Yale when he was having a hard time adjusting to the culture of school and his classes. He returned, but only to drop out again. And this led George Bush to really lay it into Dick throughout their years working together. 50 Cent is another rapper who worked long and hard to make it big in the rap game. He got a deal with Columbia Records and recorded an album that was shelved before it was released. Oh yeah, and there was also that 2000 shooting where 50 got 9 bullets put into his body, including one in his face. Although as of recent he has filed for bankruptcy, his Instagram, well, it tells a different story. Coming in at number 16, we're talking about Katy Perry. In 2001, Katy Perry, or Kate Hudson, that was her birth name, yeah, no joke, she released her first gospel album with Red Hill Records, which was commercially unsuccessful. After selling only 200 copies, Red Hill Records, they actually went out of business. It did that bad. Katy had no education to fall back on, having dropped out of high school, so she made the move to Los Angeles. She was dropped by 2 more labels, and it wasn't until 2006 that she blew up with her track I Kissed a Girl, which is a song that still gets me excited. Sir Isaac Newton, his mother actually pulled him out of school so her boy could run the family farm. How did that work out? Well, let's just say he failed miserably. That's when all of a sudden mom and dad, they were saying, "You're not that bright." But he went on to study at Cambridge University and he became a physics scholar. Newton went on to become one of the greatest scientists of all time, revolutionizing physics and mathematics. Just couldn't get him to milk one of them cows. Yeah, I'm sure he had a lot of people to do that for him later in life, right? I'm a genius! Get me some milk. Stephen King's first novel, Carrie, was rejected 30 times before it was published. The man had become so frustrated that he threw the original copy in the bin. He was ready to call it quits as a writer. Eventually, Carrie was published and it would become a feature film in 1976 and again in 2013. Stephen King has penned over 50 novels, which has sold over 350 million copies. And today, well, his net worth is estimated to be somewhere around 400 million. So good thing he didn't quit. Moving on to number 19, we have Jenna Marbles. Jenna attended Suffolk University. At Suffolk, she obtained a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and later attended Boston University for a Master of Education in Sports Psychology and Counseling. It's a lot of education. What did Jenna do with all this knowledge? Well, she was working as a go-go dancer. She was also working at a tanning salon and doing some writing online. Then she went ahead and made a few YouTube videos and her life had changed overnight. Good for her. She's a babe too, right?
Makes a great drinking game.
Drink every time you still don't have a job. I'm getting hammered.
We have another lady who sees the power of the internet. I'm talking about Adrienne Huffington, who's responsible for the Huffington Post. Previous to this endeavor, her book was rejected by 36 publishers, and when she ran for governor of California in 2003, well, she received under 1% of the vote. Yeah, she didn't do very good at all. Like porn stars have done better. How's she doing today? Well, now she has a bumping website, an estimated $315 million in the bank, and she's published 13 books. So she's doing a-okay. At 21, we have Winston Churchill. Now, before he would go on to become the British Prime Minister in 1940 to 1955, around the time of World War II, well, Winston Churchill failed the 6th grade. He was also defeated in every public office role he had ran for, and was even exiled from politics for some time. But when shit really hit the fan with a war, they were like, you go on, you take it. He got the gig of Prime Minister at 62 and remains one of the most famous and respected men in UK history. Unfortunately for Lucille Ball, it didn't always feel like everyone loved Lucy. She attended John Murray Anderson School for the Dramatic Arts in New York City, and they pretty much told her she was awful. She then fell ill and couldn't work for 2 years due to arthritis. When she got going, she appeared in so many second-tier films that she became known as the Queen of B-movies. And when you make it in Hollywood, well, you want to make it to the top. You don't want to make it to the B level. You're like, oh, I suck. This all changed when CBS greenlit I Love Lucy. This is when she was in her 40s, which for a girl in show business, well, you're kind of getting up there at 40, so I'm happy it all worked out. The Wright brothers, those dudes responsible for Flight, well, they battled depression and family illness in their early years. They opened up a bike shop, and through this knowledge, they became hooked on the idea of flying in the sky. It took them 7 years, a whole lot of money, and a lot of crashes before they achieved their dream. Tennis pro Stan Smith, he wasn't even allowed to be a ball boy during his youth. They deemed him too clumsy and uncoordinated, but the boy persevered and trained hard. He went on to win Wimbledon, the US Open, and 8 Davis Cups. For the number 25 spot, we're going to talk about my own abuse story. Let's roll a clip from that.
Currently, I am at Humber College where I'm studying television writing and producing. We are learning how to write, pitch, sell, and produce all different genres of television.
Yeah, so that was me 4+ years ago. Truthfully, there were a few people who gave me a helping hand in this business. If it weren't for you guys and for YouTube, 100% my future would have been me living on the streets. That's the way my life was going. For a very long time, I wasn't covering my basic living expenses, never mind the $50,000 in student debt I had to pay back, but how do you do that when you can't get a job?
Alright, Why, yes. I was wondering what would break first.
Yeah, it was a tough go getting into the entertainment industry, but we're doing all right now. Okay guys, I've made other 25 lists on this channel. We've done 25 random facts about hip-hop artists. We've also done 25 facts about porn stars in the porn industry. So perhaps you might want to check out one of those. Also let us know if you want to see a part 3 in this series. I'll see you guys in another video. Man, I should have made this like 10. 25 is just so much. Anyway, it's over. Let's move on.